Welcome to the Heart of the Matter. On today's program, we sit down for a personal visit with Dick Knowlton, former president and CEO of Hormel Foods Corporation. The company changed dramatically during his tenure. Stay tuned for the Heart of the Matter. Dick Knowlton led Hormel Foods Corporation through a dramatic transformation, both in the variety of products they innovated and in the process of how they were made. On today's program, we bring you the personal side of Mr. Knowlton's story. His early youth growing up in Austin, the backstory of some key corporate decisions, and his personal enjoyment of his current work as the chairman of the Hormel Foundation.
Having a Fortune 500 company in your backyard has a big impact on a community, on the lives of the people who reside there. For one man, Richard Knowlton, he could scarcely imagine the importance that one company would have on his life. Growing up in Austin, Minnesota, Dick Knowlton had the same life as many other children of families who depended on the Hormel packing plant for its livelihood. The Crane Addition, where he grew up, was an everyday neighborhood where kids played in the street and enjoyed summers barefoot. Beginning with his first job at 16, the Hormel processing plant became central to Knowlton's working life, culminating with his leadership of the Hormel Food Corporation as its president and CEO. During his tenure, he led a transformation of the company as the food industry changed from commodity meat to highly specialized food products. He retired in 1995. Today, Knowlton enjoys chairing the Hormel Foundation, spearheading and supporting key projects in his hometown.
Mr. Knowlton, thank you so much for visiting with us today. Hormel Food Corporation is a company that is a Fortune 500 company, and Austin, Minnesota takes great pride in having its headquarters here. But there are many other area communities that also kind of feel a sense of ownership with the company. What was it like to be a giant in a rural area?
Well, I think it's a special distinction, and it proves that business can be built and can be successful in smaller communities. And I don't want to call our town through here that they are small, but they do provide a wonderful environment in which sometimes is overlooked by others of the things that can be done in a community. And for example, how you can develop and look at education as a piece of your community that is very important. And so that's just one of many things. But we've gone through the school systems there here in Austin, and I think the programs we had for our senior high and the programs we've had for our junior high, and now we're taking the lower levels, so we're going to treat every level and try and make them the best, and try and help them financially to afford some of these extra programs that will make our place a better place to live and a better place for your children to be educated. And so all those things are working right now, and it's just a delight to have those things.
It really gives you a chance to have a pretty significant impact on your community.
Oh, we think so, and I think sometimes we overlook it. We take it for granted, but I think if we examine those things, we realize how important those things are to a good family life, to a good life in terms of which education is so fundamental.
History is kind of a funny thing. George Hormel stopped here and said this is a great place to build a company, and now we have this Fortune 500 company in the community. At one point in the history of the company, there was talk of relocating. Tell us why you felt it was important for the company to remain here and why this is a good place to operate.
Well, having grown up here and having realized that I did get a good education here in Austin, it wasn't something that you had to be in a big city for. In fact, you're particularly blessed not to have that as a distraction. So Austin it had so much to offer. And sometimes we overlook all of the wonderful things that are there in the quality of life that are here in a community like this one.
You recently wrote a book, Points of Difference.
Yes.
And that was kind of your theme throughout the book. Tell us what a point of difference is.
Well, we, in our company, and when we were trying to get the company turned around and get it moving and get it profitable and to get it growing, we were able to take those things and say, okay, what are the points of difference? What are the points of difference that we are able to bring to the quality of life, to the attraction that we have, and we want to get people who are educated and who have brought higher education to it, and we, every step of the way, try and assure that those are there. So that's been the key word on the points of difference is those points that we say is different in the marketplace. It's everyone wants to think of it in the marketplace. Yes, it is focused on being there with your point of difference. You must have points of difference in packaging or quality of product or in the various ways in which you market the product, the attractiveness to a consumer, what is it that makes a consumer, the packaging of it. All those things are fundamental to getting a product that's successful in the marketplace. And so it's that we talk about. But we're looking for points of difference in the quality of life for our workers. And it's a wonderful thing because once your company has that as a piece of their whole way of operation, you find that you are successful when others aren't. And so it becomes something that that point of difference is well defined.
For those that may not have recognized it because it happened over a number of years, help us understand really the dramatic changes in the food industry over the last 40 years. You experienced some tremendous change during your tenure leading the company.
Well, thank you for identifying that, because that was one of the difficult things, was getting to identify it and then get your company restructured and get that focus on these points of difference we've just talked about. And when we got that moving, we started making edges on our competition. And not just in the marketplace, but in cost to produce. The innovations that we've brought to the industry is remarkable. And all of us in the company love to be involved in innovation. And so it's a prize that we all look for and find in our everyday way of life. And we constantly evaluate our products to see, are we bringing true points of difference? Are we bringing a reason for the consumer to select our product over others? And if it's a new point of difference that hasn't been in the industry, and you have the opportunity again to have an edge on your competition. And at first that was difficult to get built because you're changing a culture in a company. And we were very much stayed in the idea of watching quality so much that it prevented us from moving as fast as we should have moved in terms of points of difference and bringing the points of difference the consumer is interested in. But we got through that, and once it's inculcated in your company, it's hard to stop them. And so it will only be stopped when we stop finding top people to come in, and we stop giving them the background and the environment in which we can bring success in those ventures we had with all the new products and with all the new marketing programs we're able to put forward. That's the excitement that's in this business, and you can feel it in our company.
And you mentioned new products. I mean, when you kind of came on board in the 60s and 70s, you still were doing meat. That was kind of your thing. And now the product line is completely changed.
Well, that's been our objective all along. And I think if you were to trace, yes, it's hard to get that first transfer made and hard to get the first excitement come. Your first success story then starts bringing you others that want to follow the pattern that's working so well in terms of bring new products, profitable products to the marketplace. And of course, fortunate for us. And we, if we can just keep preserving those things that are that important to the consumer, and are that important to our people who work in our plants.
One of the interesting stories that you shared was about Top Shelf, a little bit before its time, and tell us about how important that packaging and the delivery mechanism and kind of the information you give consumers. You came out with that and it was ahead of their time. It's been through some transformations and now it's a very popular product for you under a different name. Talk about how that takes time sometimes in the marketplace to get a hold of the consumer that you're looking for.
Well, we were so excited about bringing true points of difference again to our consumer that we, I think, got ahead of ourselves. And in fact, even on Top Shelf, the name Top Shelf, the retailer started putting it on the top shelf. And many of our consumers would not be able to reach up there to find the product and to certainly observe it and then buy it. So we had to change the name, obviously, but we were so excited about bringing this new product that was wonderful. It was received. We got all kinds of remarks of success coming from every corner. In fact, it was deemed as the product of the last quarter century, you know, by the food industry. And to do those things and then not have it successful in that first was you know, sort of a startling thing. And we had to admit, and I had to admit, I was leading something that I felt so strongly about because it was sending a message in terms of points of difference and in terms of bringing new products to the marketplace. So I was involved in there as well. We overlooked the one thing that needs to be done, and that is, again, to get that product so that it's at the shelf level and that it is identified not as a top shelf, but something that has quality to it. So, but we learned those lessons, and we learned them, I think, quite quickly. And I think that's one of our advantages, is that when we come on with a new product and we find little glitches in there that need to be improved, we react and respond quickly. And if we don't succeed, you know, we step aside and move on. We don't sit there in anguish about any of the failures we might have.
I love the comments in the books where you talked about people in your company didn't fail alone and that you saw failure as a necessary part of learning. How did you come to that conclusion? Was that something ingrained, or is that something that you really brought forward during your tenure?
Well, I think I don't want to take credit for it. I want to take credit for acknowledging that this was a truism that was there. And one of the things I think we were able to do is that when we appeared to have something that wasn't as successful as we were quick to find it, correct it. I think our workforce too, I think they realized that they have a very major investment here too. And I think we've established that together. I think we are a team. And I think that during these difficult times that we're having with the economy, we're moving by it in beautiful shape. It's almost as though it weren't being experienced by us.
As Hormel Foods Corporation navigated its way through the dramatic changes in the food industry, it was not without considerable conflict. Dick Knowlton led the company through an extremely contentious labor dispute in the mid-1980s.
We've had our bumps along the way, but all of them, and I think today, and I think you're finding that, yes, hate to bring it up as one of those things that you learn about, and you learn a great deal of how you need to be responding, how you need to be managing, and that was when we went through that labor situation that we had. And I think every person knows now why some of these things had to be. We could not put ourselves in a position of jeopardizing the company because we were, and I had promised them that we would always be the best paid. And I hope we're always able to attain that. It's been true ever since any of us can remember. If we've paid the best wage, we have the best fringes, we have the best health care programs, And that's a goal for us just as much as it is to have point of difference in the products we produce.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And you detailed that quite extensively in the book and weren't afraid to kind of lay out the facts as you saw them and how the industry was changing. And really, in order for the company to survive, it still had to compete within that industry. So a lot of detail in the book. It's always, I think, probably, and you'll tell me, it was the hard part actually living through it. It's one thing to describe it and know in your head that it has to change, but in your heart, living through it, I expect, was quite a challenge.
That is and has been a byword that we've had to kind of live by to make sure that we are really truly putting genuine change into the business and change into the safety standards in our plants for our workers and our wages that we have for our people, and we still have our profit sharing program, you know, for every employee, and it's just further evidence of it is, in a real sense, we've said it many times, that it is their company. And if we look at it properly, I think each one of us find that to be true, whether you're in management or whether you're on the line with our folks. They are our people, and they perform best when we have those factors that we just talked about. And we try and stand good to all of them in terms of wages, fringes, health care, right on profit sharing and the like. And there are very few companies in America today who have profit sharing, just as an example.
The success and conflict of the company had a very personal meaning for Knowlton. As one of 7 children in a family living in the Crane Edition, whose father worked for Hormel, Knowlton's life from day one depended on the success of the company.
The Hormel Food Company story is a very personal one for you. You grew up here in Austin. Tell us what it was like growing up in this community in those
Well,
days.
you know, everyone looked at the fact that, you know, there was not a summer until I was 14 years old that I had shoes to wear in the summertime. You know, it was given that you could be barefooted, but nobody thought much about it. And I suppose living in Crane Edition as I did for those first years in there, you may not know Crane Edition, but it was one of those that was right near the plant. It was small, and sometimes it had tar paper on it. And, but you know, those were good people. And so they didn't bother. I never really felt an unhappy moment. I think my mother was so strong, little bitty, barely 5 feet tall, but just had 7 children, and all of them born at home. And so, I mean, we all were there at home when the next one was being born. And in fact, I remember one day we had a big ice storm, and I went out ice skating. And when I came home, there on the kitchen table, my mother had given birth to our youngest of the kids. So, anyway, they're just wonderful things that unfortunately I think people miss, and they miss the evaluation of the things that are really important to them and important to the way in which America is moving. And it's hard sometimes for us to accept the fact that it is changing, and that we must change too, but we want the better side of the change. We don't want it just to be changing, because that's when I think when economies and people start changing for the poor. Yeah.
Your father worked for the company, and you did as a young man, I mean, early on.
Yeah, I went to work in the plant when I was 16 years old. And I worked in the plant and online, and there were a few points in there when I was working on the extra gang. When I was put into jobs, you are expected to maintain, we have an incentive system, and you were expected to maintain that work level. If you couldn't, you were out. And so at 16 years old, there were a couple of jobs in there that I was doing that were really manly, and I think they were watching to see, and my dad was very concerned But you know, that lasted 4 days, and I was on the extra gang, so I moved on to another job, and I worked for a fellow named Don Ramel, and he was just a wonderful foreman, and he knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. If there was anything that you couldn't do, you were caught up with quickly. Yeah, but it was. Well, I was so fortunate to have. I was making the same money that everyone was making in that plant, and working on production as well. So I really, the first time I saw a dentist, the first time I ever had a chance to really own some shoes and things like that you are able to do. I don't remember an unhappy moment when I was growing up. It was in the heart of the Depression. I'm a 1932 baby, so you can imagine that those things existed. But I feel sorry for those people who sort of miss that experience and the values that have to be incorporated. But my mother and father, despite the fact that it was tough times, and the pay he got every week was $12. And so you can see where any glitch in there would be felt in a big way.
Well, and a great experience for you to have had that as a young person and then ultimately end up leading the company. I mean, very inspirational story.
Well, I take no great credit for that. I think I was lucky to be here, and I was lucky to have somebody. In fact, I sat in the employment office for 3 weeks. And some valuable time was being missed, and the money that I might get with it. But finally, the employment manager was a wonderful guy, but always had sort of a rough edge to him. He says, "Knowlton," he said, "I'm tired of looking at you out here." And he says, "Why don't you go out and go to work?" And I says, "Give me the card, give me the card."
Knowlton continued to work for Hormel even during his college years at the University of Colorado. He ultimately became chairman and CEO. Retiring in 1995, Knowlton is now chairman of the Hormel Foundation.
I must tell you that we are so fortunate to have that foundation, and because it has around 48% of the stock of the company in it, and nobody can come in here and buy us out.
Help us understand that, because I think people they know there's a foundation and they know they give grants and good gifts, but I think that's a piece that maybe folks don't understand exactly how that works.
You must understand, of course, that approximately 48% of the stock, that there is enough almost unto itself to win any vote that it has to in terms. In fact, you'd almost be assured, because no matter how bad it would be, to get 3 percentage points of approval from whoever to bring it to 51 means that is control. And so what Mr. Hormel has done for us was get us started. But those of us who have followed have made sure that it's gone from around 28 to 32 and stayed in there at 30 range for quite a long time. And then some of us decided that we were going to have the shares into the foundation, and the foundation has almost essentially what you call voting control. And that's a wonderful assurance for the people who work at our company, and they look toward us as leaders to be there and to be accountable for the good things that can happen when all these things come together.
Yep, and no other company can come in and buy out the company and change it.
Not that I know of,
Okay.
and we do think about that a lot. I mean, so we try and be sure that that isn't going to be something that would be our Achilles tendon, so to speak.
In terms of other work that the foundation does, you have a structure where you support a certain number of organizations and you support things in the communities. Tell us how much fun it has been coming from the corporation into the chairman of the foundation and all the great things that you get to do in the community.
Well, that's been something that's motivated us. to move on and to have that funding that's available to redo the high school. I mean, one of my great pleasures was to go up, and I took the engineers up there, and we went through that place and redesigned and said, this is what we can do, and we don't have to tear it down. There was a big movement afoot in town here to build a new high school, maybe out in Mapleview, but never concerned with the thought of salvaging the high school we have. And so because there were a lot of other houses around it and it wasn't, so I sent a guy up in his overalls and he bought up most of those houses in there, and so we had the houses, we had the space to have on the high school around so we could redo it. And then we took the inside of it and just literally gutted it. Those were important ingredients to, again, a quality of life, to quality of education. We had teachers that were, I think, superb. Well, the fact that I could go to the University of Colorado and end up in a high entrance was not because I was a great student. It was because I was given a great education. And it's wonderful that we have the funds in the foundation to step in to projects like that.
And really make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to do that again. It will not be the heavy. It doesn't have to be the heavy. When you do things that are right, the others want to join in. And it's another evidence of what you can do when you have a foundation that is there and can help the people with things that they can't get done on their own. That's why we're in such a prized position.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to envision why a person wouldn't want to work here and want to be a part of this community.
Well, congratulations to you on a very successful term leading the Hormel Food Corporation, and all the best to you on your work with the foundation as you go forward. Pleasure visiting with you.
Yeah, been my pleasure.
As an Austin native, Dick Knowlton continues to support his hometown. As he said to me during our visit, he couldn't imagine anyone not wanting to live in Austin. Please join us for our next episode featuring the changing face of seniors. For Donnie Rolls, I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Good night from the heart of the matter.